I've had people use my image and likeness to fraud people out of money. And what was fascinating to me is how gullible sometimes the victims might be. And what's weird is that you can find my voice anywhere if you Google it.
Those type of things are concerning because you got to think when it comes to banking, telecommunications, transaction, corporate engagements, now we can replicate CEOs and board members alike. I think that's super concerning.
They still think the news is actual facts. They don't believe in the narratives that might be pushed left or right, however you want to say. And it's funny because my mom believes everything she sees on the internet. Welcome to another episode of Time to Head North podcasts, brought to you by the North Group, security refined by intelligence. With me today is a special guest, is Steve Hernandez. Steve, you're still a CEO, correct?
Yes, sir.
I wasn't sure if the title changed by for any reason or whatnot, but
I wish.
I'm sure it could be challenging running a company like that, but. You know, today I want to talk about some of the big things that are kind of in the news. Something we can start with right now, I think, that's a little more light than other things in security, but would be more of AI. Recently, you know, my kids have been talking about AI and the concerns, and I brought them the movie The Terminator, and they have no idea what the Terminator is. I'm like, guys, it is essentially talking about right now, right, where AI potentially creates some kind of mechanics or robot that starts to deem us humans as the virus or like the flawed specimen in the society, and it starts to target us. And recently there was someone who was killed in a pizza plant, essentially, and makes me start to think, do you know a lot about AI and people using AI in security. Is there a thought that we have potentially gone way too far with AI and that we've lost control of where that might go? And is there concerns for us as just normal people living day to day should think about?
I don't think so yet, Rocco. I think where we're at with AI from like a safety standpoint is it's a learning mechanism right now. It learns what we tell it to learn. I think that there are some companies that are experiencing and experimenting with generative AI and human-based integration functions with AI, being able to take, a human brain after death and apply it to AI. All those research, medical capacities are taking place, around the world. But listen, I don't think we're going to see Terminator anytime, at least not in our lifetime. I do, however, think that quantum computing with AI and machine learning is a threat, right, to financial institutions, critical infrastructure, things like that. I think it'll make hacking a lot easier once quantum computing comes online, and then machine learning is able to applicate into coding patterns and different things like that. That'll create a lot of threat anomalies that we are starting to see, right? I think the greatest thing with AI that concerns me is AI generated bot farms and campaigns for disinformation, right? Because I mean, if you look at, just the last weeks of events, you have a bunch of systems that are producing, we'll call them systems, but bot campaigns that are producing fake images and fake narratives of, geopolitical events and political events. There was some stuff that got published on a news outlet regarding what Trump did wrong on his UK visit. And then there's all these AI photos and generations of that, right? So I think that deepfake technology with AI is super concerning. I actually heard a phrase used by some folks in the federal government the other day called deep live, which is absolutely terrifying. Entire board meetings can take place, entire executive meetings can take place on what we consider a Zoom platform. And that is being ran all by AI. Maybe one or two real people are on it, but they think the other people are real. So wow. Deep live is a thing, right? But I do think that's concerning.
Yeah, that's absolutely scary. You know, I've had people use my image and likeness to fraud people out of money. And what was fascinating to me is how gullible sometimes the victims might be. And what's weird is that you can find my voice anywhere if you Google it. What was happening was that they were using videos of me talking, and they were just using their own voice as mine. They didn't even AI my voice, which they could now. And it was enough to convince women that I was, engaging with them, but not even that, being intimate with them, all through fake videos of me or actual live videos of me, but fake voices. And I even mentioned to one lady, she goes, "You FaceTime me?" I said, "No, I have not." I said, if it doesn't sound like me now right here, like what you've seen on videos, like it's not me. But, the victim sometimes is so disillusioned. And also, most of the women who are being targeted are vulnerable. And so they were hoping there was a real connection there. They were hoping there was something. And so they ignored the kind of the red flags of that. And I think that's something that a lot of us do in life. We ignore some of these little red flags that we know might not necessarily be realistic. And we just kind of say, okay. And it happened with me also on the phone with a fraud. I was moving. I had to cancel my cable, and I gave the guy all my information. And as soon as I hung up, I was like, damn, I think I gave up my information. And it's so easy now with such rudimentary kind of like SOPs, if you will, that when AI starts to generate my actual voice and a video of me talking to them directly where the mouth matches the voice, man, that's going to be a massive concern.
Yeah, and that FaceTime video would be considered deep live, right? Because it's a real time appearance of communication happening on a live video feed, right? So those type of things are concerning, because you got to think, when it comes to banking, telecommunications, transaction, corporate engagements, right? Now we can replicate, CEOs and board members alike. I think that's super concerning, right?
Yeah, it changes kind of the face of how we do business. It's almost like we can't do video calls. We have to meet face to face and shake hands. That's the only way I could acknowledge that this is a legitimate interaction.
100%. And I do believe that one of the cures for that is going to be QR coding, login, right? Different things that get generated from a CISO perspective, a security perspective, an IT security perspective. We're going to start have to validating, listen, man, COVID created this environment where we all went remote, but it also, the enemy adapts and evolves, right? We've seen this time and time again.
It's made us
so
way
that's
more
all we're
vulnerable.
seeing. Yeah, that's all we're seeing is the enemy adapting, right? The adversary is adapting to what we are considering a norm and applicable for lifestyle and circumstance, and that's what we're seeing. We're feeling that effect.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a very different time. I think the most vulnerable people would be kind of my parent age group, in the late 50s, late 60 timeframe, where they're still using social media, but not necessarily understanding it. They still think the news is actual facts, and they don't believe in the narratives that might be pushed left or right, however you want to say. And it's funny because my mom believes everything she sees on the internet. And we're lucky to have the young kids in our lives that know that it's not as easy, even though they're vulnerable as well to manipulation and to all these other things. But it's interesting. I think the most vulnerable era is the ones who just started learning technology at a later age.
100%. And my parents as well, right? I mean, the one thing I will say is there's different, criminal elements that target different, age groups, right? So like the financial crime elements, they really focus on this credit card fraud. They focus on, like the payment schemes. But a lot of that's done, through, telecommunications, of some kind, whether it's text, calls, but then that stuff's coming from overseas, right? I tell you what I find hilarious, and I love sitting and watching the videos of the dudes that actually hack the hackers.
Yes.
To me, if I could just watch those all day long, I find them hilarious, right?
Yeah, the counter hackers
just watch
in India.
the adversary. Yeah. Yeah. And then they're so mad. They're like, why are you doing this? What do you mean? Why are you doing this?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Even the cartel has been known to start using those methods, right? The cartel is starting to do things like selling fake timeshares, a lot of these different schemes and targeting elders who, you know, use the phone, who just call them and they started selling them on the phone, and then boom, they ended up using that as another form of kind of not just money laundering, but just corrupt, you know, business, nefarious business techniques, you know.
Well, they got to diversify, man. Your old brother and are hurting them a little bit right now, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
know,
it's a
they got to
different.
diversify. That's the thing. I mean, every criminal organization, go back to the 1970s with the mafia, right? I mean, they knew that the commission was over, the whole Anastasia bust happens, right? And the mafia in the 1970s did not look like the mafia in the 1950s because they had to legitimize some of their businesses, right? They had to. And that's what you see with these criminal elements. I mean, it's not a bad way to go. I mean, that's why the cartels moved into more of human sex trafficking, right? And different things like that, because I mean, you know, they could make more money on a 14-year-old girl than they could on a kilo of drugs,
Yeah,
right? Residually. So it's economics, right? So wherever, and I will say this, the cartel rivals the CIA. Some of these cartels have the infrastructure, both human intelligence, cyber intelligence, and geospatial intelligence, you know, to where they can do everything but maybe task a satellite.
yeah,
Probably can do that in some regards.
yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? Now, are they a match for, you know, are they a match for what we have? Kinetically, no. But on a cyber standpoint, if your actor is nefarious versus the honest, you know, take one nefarious actor who's really good and then take 10 ethical hackers that work for the United States government, I'm more concerned about that one nefarious actor being able to wreak havoc and damage because they're operating in the gray and the black and really in an environment that we're not tracking, right? They're you know, building their backstops, they're doing all that from a digital footprint standpoint. We see that with the cartel all the time. I mean, the cartel's even going as far as doing corporate exploitation and defrauding. You know, they used to just steal trucks and steal oil and gas, right? Now they're going to the extremes of the credit card fraud schemes. You're seeing Armenian outfits, right? You see Russian outfits. I mean, criminal enterprise is going to constantly evolve and target based on what the government is getting them on. So the evolution of crime patterns is going to continue to evolve. And cyber is at the forefront of, I think, every major criminal organization right now, for sure.
Yeah, you know what else concerns me with the cartel is their use and starting to use the drones more, and it makes me
Mm.
concerned based on what we're seeing in Ukraine, right? Like the way, man, you and I have been to war, and to see how war is being done now is absolutely
Mhm.
terrifying, and it makes me feel that we are a lot more vulnerable than we think, especially in our borders. If in the event that someone wants to, you know, wreak some chaos on us, they could, especially via drone. And I know that's a concern of the government. I know the government is kind of tracking on that. But you know, how do you defend that? Like, what are your thoughts on drone warfare?
I mean, domestically, it's a big concern. Obviously, I think, you know, if we're talking about lone wolf actorship versus group actorship, whether it's a cartel or a terror organization or domestic terror, foreign terror, whatever the case may be, I'm concerned that the accessibility to an aerial asset that, depending on payload infrastructure and what it can carry, concerns me, right? I mean, if you watch the thousands of videos that are out there on Ukraine, and you know, we did a lot of work in Ukraine in the beginning of the war. What concerns me is the innovation of what we see on the battlefield will typically trend to the adversary space, right? Like we used to say, shit rolls downhill, right?
Yeah.
You know, it comes from, you know, SOCOM down to Flat C, and then federal law enforcement starts training. We see the same thing with TTPs and what have you on the adversary side. They're watching how Ukraine is attacking a multinational, you know, force, right? From the North Koreans to the Russians, and how they decimated these North Koreans in a matter of hours. You know what I mean? Like this kind of using improvised explosive devices attached to, you know, U.S. platforms. I think that that's going to be something that for the next 20 years we're concerned about here domestically. Large scale events, right, are a major concern. I'm having this conversation daily right now with different clients and different agencies on, okay, so, we need to counter the long range threat, but we also need to counter the aerial threat. What does that look like? I think both of those threats have a few solutions. One is going to be LiDAR, right? LiDAR technology is going to be the counter mechanism, being able to put a tethered system up, having LiDAR fixed base cameras, bipods and things to pick that up. But I mean, there's a lot of viability with like the cartel using this stuff to, counterattack, say CBP or HSI, doing a raid down on the border. That's always concerned me, right? And now you got Hollywood glorifying that and different things, and it's a little weird, man. Like Hollywood will glorify it, put something in a movie or like a series, and now we start to like kind of see remnants of that happening in the real world.
Yeah.
It's like The Simpsons, man.
Yeah.
Right? It drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's weird how Hollywood does it. Like they're so afraid of doing certain things, and then they do other things that they don't realize, or maybe they do realize that it creates massive impacts. The biggest influence of our time is film and television, and when you start to use some of these little storylines, it actually starts to impact society. I mean, just my show alone on Mayans MC has created waves of new motorcycle enthusiasts, right? You know what I mean? That's how this works. And so when we start creating all these, drug paraphernalia style or cartel style shows, it starts to glorify and almost it almost romanticizes the idea of it, and that causes problems.
Well, I mean, you talk about, the radicalization, right? I had a conversation with one of our executives the other day. I was like, listen, this whole environment of political tension is just another remnant of radicalization and insurgency. I mean, it's an insurgency at the end of the day. If you have a political ideology and you want to retaliate based on what you believe, then I mean, and you're creating violence to that effect, then you're part of an insurgency at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's actually the segue into the next topic is essentially, you said it well, but I was going to mention how some of these threats that are happening currently because of ideologies, right? Because of counter ideologies or difference of ideologies, and it becomes a threat. Things like the CEO that was killed in the street by Luigi, right? Like these are ideologies. These are thoughts that are just like they don't see eye to eye. So instead, these other demographics right now and these kind of like, I don't know if I want to label it Antifa, but like these small groups who are choosing violence over anything else. And that's how they're trying to shift, I guess, the scales to be more on their favor, or to almost terrorize leaders, thought leaders, as well as CEOs to kind of see it their way. And it's an interesting thing that's happening more and more. And partly I feel is that when we, again, the media, start to give these people attention, it feeds the narrative a little bit more. It almost creates a new wave of those who want to be remembered, right? To live in that legacy of that they're the freedom fighters of their generation.
Yeah, the Brian Thompson case is interesting with United Healthcare because there's, I'm not touting that people should go out and do this immediately, but protective intelligence is everything, right? Just being in the know, right? What your threat matrices are as an organization. I feel as if, the retaliation a lot of times is you have grievance ideology, right? That's occurring with these folks, right? They're upset about something. Maybe they've made it known. I'm concerned about the lone wolf, actor that has a grievance and doesn't express it, doesn't meet the 97% threshold of visiting the place, or 83% that notify somebody of their plans before, right? All of these different factors. I'm worried about the difference there, right? And honestly, I'm worried about one of us, somebody capable with experience and knowledge and tactics Like that terrifies me. I have that conversation all the time with law enforcement, right? Is I'm like, train to take on yourself, train to take on somebody better than you, right? Because at the end of the day, what we're dealing with, and like in the last week, I've had multiple conversations with school districts
Yeah.
where I'm telling them, hey, get your teachers off the internet, because you don't know what student where in that classroom or in that district is now hearing that teacher's opposite political opinion and is going to be the next, martyr to their cause. And it's on both sides of the aisle, right? What we have to do is take that combat pause right now and really understand that, listen, you know me very well, Rocco. I'm totally comfortable with violence, right? Violence does not scare me. And I probably am more comfortable with that than I am calm. I think most of us were coming out of, the GWAT generation. But I also, there's those of us that have that heart for the innocent, right? And I think that that's the difference here.
Yeah.
Is we have a heart problem. We have a heart problem in America right now, right? And why do we have a heart problem? It's because it's disinformation driving that heart problem.
Yes. I am someone I consider pretty experienced in using communication. As someone who has a background in psychological operations, who has a master's in psychology and a master's in journalism, I understand how to use information to sway opinions, right? And I've been sitting back watching people, watching the media, watching the news, watching Hollywood, watching everybody use their version of countering misinformation or whatever it might be. And what I find interesting is that we're in an era where everyone has I would say a pseudo voice. They all have social media, which means they think they have a voice, which means they think their opinion is significant enough to share with the world. And then it becomes this very scary space where everyone feels the need to express, and that open expression that makes them feel free and safe. It is not safe. You know what I mean? And it's this really weird time that everyone wants to just express himself publicly. Me, I don't do that very well. I just kind of go to my wife like, oh man, it's been a crazy day. Here's how I feel. Instead of going straight to the internet. And it's like someone who's going through a bad breakup and they say, oh my God, this is happening. We see this so often now. And it's something about society that feels very comfortable with telling the world their internal dialogue. And it's a dangerous space when you think you can do that to the world for good or evil, right? It doesn't matter. I find it interesting that we're in a society where they feel the need to tell everyone their thoughts immediately. That is a weird thing, because when we have situations just like we had last week, it becomes this really almost more divisive because people they choose a side. They feel the need to choose a side and say, here's my line in the sand. Here's how I feel. If you don't like it, unfollow. And it's like, man, we're in a really weird time right now. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I think what scares me the most about where we're at as a country and from a society standpoint is people are willing to believe what is on the internet so quickly that I don't believe we were ever meant to communicate like this.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll give you my analogy on this. You're talking to your wife. You have a beautiful family. You guys are on opposite ends of town or even out of state. You say something and that text message is perceived a certain way because there's no tone. So for thousands of years, we communicated like this, right? And only for the last, however many years we've communicated via phone, text. And even if you go back and you read papers, newspapers from the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was tonnage in there. For some reason, there's not a lot of tonnage in text message. And there's definitely not a lot of tonnage that is, I guess, tonnage that people want to express, or maybe it is how they want to express it, but it does not come across the same way to everyone on the internet, nor in a text message. So if you're texting your wife and you say something and she's like, WTF, you're like, wait, what? I mean, we all do it, right? Yeah. You're like, that's not what I meant, right?
Yeah.
This is what I meant. They're like, oh, okay. you know, and then they're mad because they got mad, and that's still your fault. It's like, this is society in real time, right?
Yeah.
Is reading text messages amongst each other, trying to figure out why they're so mad at each other. But then you take political ideology, political viewpoints into their socioeconomic, right, views, and then you start to apply that all in a text message that, the word the, okay, and these type of things are used with no emotional context.
Yeah.
So we were never meant to communicate like that. So that's how you have that social desperation. What we have right now is a desperation to effectively communicate as a society, which we don't know how to do because we've thrown all this technology that is absent of emotion,
Yeah.
and absent of compassion. So when you talk about why people are okay with, 81 million impressions, I think an hour or something to that effect, I read on the the Charlie Kirk assassination. We're so okay with that. Now, we might be because of where we come from, but society, you got 12-year-olds and 8-year-olds watching that on YouTube and live TV now.
Yeah.
So we are conditioning a society to be so comfortable with violence, which I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, right? But that's what scares me, is we're not protecting the minds of the youth anymore. We're not really correcting any wrong. We're just combating each other now, which is psychological warfare 101. If you want to topple a country, turn its people against each other and create institutional failure by way of social desperation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? How many times have I'm going to say we wrote the manual on that, because we didn't, and we're not the best at it anymore. I don't think. I think we know who is, and they've got, bot farms and campaigns, and they control the world through belts and roads. Right.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So I think that's what scares me about it.
Yeah. The short form content has become king, not the long form, because it takes too long for information.
Mm-hmm.
And the short form content is the ones that can be skewed, that can be received different from the intention, just like a text would be, right? If you only give you one short soundbite that says something, you're right, it feeds a whole.
Well, then apply AI to it.
Yeah.
Right? Go back to AI. Then you put 1,000 AI centric bots on top of that one political narrative that then divides a country in half. And then you throw a bunch of AI based video and photos on it, and now you have a hot button issue.
Yeah. It's crazy. It is a crazy, crazy time we're living in. Well, let me ask you this.
Great time to be in the security industry.
Yeah.
I mean,
one of the other things I wanted to mention was that young lady who was killed on the bus, and not so much for anything other than, I don't want to say anything about like her decision to sit there, and people aren't thinking about that, but concerns for my family, for your family. What are some things that you think of in a security kind of mindset that we can help our kids, our women make better choices, or choices that would keep them more safe than not? In the crazy world we live in right now, there's no guarantees, but I live across the street from my kid's school intentionally. I made sure that I live very, very close for it. I mean, I could throw a rock to it intentionally, you know what I mean? And gave them already, points of egress, how to go and where to go in the event that something does happen. I'm also working with the school currently right now, trying to get them to pick up a security plan. They have, for some reason, continued not to think of it as a concern. Whole different topic. But what are some things you think about with your family? What are some things that you see around the world that you'd love to probably implement a little bit better?
Well, first and foremost, that bus incident, and again, absolutely horrific. That poor girl. I just, the fear, right? I get it. It's horrible. I mean, there's no reason for that level of innocent violence, right? On people that are just trying to get somewhere. Mother, a daughter. I think it's absolutely horrible. I do want to say this, though. I mean, we live in a world where we have to tell our family every day that we love them. And I think it hits a little different sometimes when you leave or they leave.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you've got, young daughters and teenage daughters. Right. So, I just had a daughter. I mean, I'm thinking about it. Cause it does hit different when you have a little girl. People told me that. I wasn't sure about that, but, I do look at it different. And, having spent a lot of time dealing with, human trafficking and different things over the years, right? I'm very aware of my surroundings. I know that, my wife is very aware, honestly, like to the extreme. I mean, she observes everything. My biggest issue I have right now with the way that safety and security are perceived by the individual family is, are we effectively communicating our concerns when we have them? Right. First and foremost, right. You're dropping your kid off at elementary. You're in the circle drive, letting them out, and you see a car sitting there. Well, what's it worth to you to just mention it to the office? These are the things that I have to tell myself, stop and do. I have to tell myself as a security expert, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the time to just see what this is, and it's important for me because I think where I'm going is situational awareness is everything here. First and foremost, you need to condition yourself to be aware of what's going on around you. Little game that I played with my oldest when he was younger a little bit, and I've seen other people just talk to their kids about, hey, what eyes and ears, what do you hear, what do you see, right?
Yeah.
If you're sitting in a restaurant, teach your kids what wrong could look like. This isn't profiling, right? I mean, I want the folks that I'm with to know, who might be carrying a weapon in here, who might be a safe bet to get with if something goes wrong. I think for me, large scale events are the greatest concern for the family dynamic right now, as well as just complete, targeting of belief systems and things like that. So I think we need to talk to our children about, the violence that you're seeing is not normal, right? But you need to be prepared. I love the analogy of, you don't need to be a nice guy, you need to be a good man.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
And that's everything to me.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great one. I want to get to my boys. With my daughter, I was talking about to Kelly Sayer. She is the author of Sharp Woman. I just had her on the podcast. She actually, I think that podcast released the other day, but we talked about that same thing with our girls, and they don't have to feel obligated to speak to people. They have to be confident enough to say, no, I don't feel comfortable. Just using their voice is so valuable. And I want to raise my daughters to do that themselves. Like, speak up if you feel a certain way, good, bad, or ugly, and different, don't care. Just speak up and use that voice. It gets interesting. The school shootings is still prevalent. It's still a thing. What are some of those? You've been in the security space for a while, and I didn't get to ask about the CEO. I'd love to hear what a well-rounded security would be for a CEO at that level. But in schools, what do you like to see to have a really strong security at a school? What are some things that you like to implement?
Access control is number one. Right. Aside that, number one, I would say is training and understanding. I'm not a big proponent of a lot of the trainings out there. I kind of have, my own thoughts, and I would say our firm has our own thoughts on the training. I have a little bit of an issue with teaching people that, to run or to fight when we don't teach them how or why. That concerns me, because we've seen a number of folks, innocent folks that have been taken in these incidences, that may have had training or not. What I will say is the consistency of any training is what's needed. Whether it's Alice, Alert, right, Run, Hide, Fight, any of these trainings, just do the trainings quarterly. I'm not saying schools need to do it monthly, but so when you talk about technology integration, access control, training, I think also having, a funded SRO program, school resource officer program in every school is imperative. I think we need to be able to have that. And if we don't have it, we need to figure out how to get federal funding, state funding to support it. Like the state of Michigan up here put out, state funding, I forget, some millions of dollars for access control, barrier to entry. Right. Yep. And, but that's great till I run my truck into the front of the building, grab my assault rifle and go in there and start systematically killing innocent people. These are the type of things that I think we need to think about. What we know is that unequivocally, a good trained person with a firearm will stop a bad person.
Yeah.
Or at least give the people in that place a fighting chance. Right? I also don't think schools' kids should have to pay to be safe. I think that the federal government needs to go to work on this. I think state legislators need to go to work on it. And I think federal and state funding need to be applicable to provide these places with the right security based on a national threat assessment footprint of, perceived risk to those districts or those schools.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. It's interesting to see when schools, even private schools, they don't implement anything. And that's always weird to me. It's like, I know there's money there. How can we start accommodating certain money just for security? You know what I mean? And that's always strange to me.
Everybody thinks they have a plan until they get punched in the mouth, in the words of one of the greatest boxers ever. Right. I do want to say that every school needs to consider the commodity that they are protecting. They are not just protecting another student. They're protecting the future, maybe the next doctor, next, president. And I think that that's how I view the world. That's how I look at human trafficking, right? If I save 10, 20 kids out of human trafficking, maybe one of them goes on to cure cancer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's how we have to look at the protection of the youth. But on top of that, you have this radicalization occurring, going back to that, within the youth. That's part of the threat here. If you look at the school in Minnesota, right? That was radicalization. That was terrorism.
Yeah. That's terrorism. That? What's causing that in our society? These little, it's like internet groups, like internet, I don't know what you want to call it. Factions. They're just it's different.
Ideological belief systems that are being attacked, right? Listen, I don't care if you think you're a dog and drink out of a dog bowl on the ground. I could care less, right? What I care about is don't tell me what I have to believe. Don't tell me that my God isn't real, and don't chant death to America and burn the American flag. And I don't have a problem with you.
Yep.
And don't be a terrorist, right? Other than that, I'm good, man. Like I think that's my belief system is we fought, bled, and defended the First Amendment right.
Yeah.
We fought and defended the right for the American people, if you're an American citizen, to be free in this country. So at the end of the day, I really don't care if somebody, supports this or don't tell me what I have to do, and don't threaten the lives of innocent people. I mean, that's my God-given calling, is to defend innocent lives, right?
Yeah.
That's what I believe. So don't attack that I believe that, and we don't have a problem.
Yeah, man, I agree.
And listen, I want to point out that, one of the things that scares me is our community, because let's not wake that giant up. I mean, think about it. There's a whole hell of a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
That are just sitting back watching.
Yeah.
Right.
I was talking to my wife about the same thing.
We don't want to be put in. We're not trying to say, hey, coach, put me in. We're just watching. But that scares me too, from both a radicalization standpoint, right? Because there are folks out there, from our communities that are very neutral to the thought of complete chaos. Yep. And I keep telling guys all the time, right? Just chill out, man. Just let it go. Cause it's, what are you going to do? You're going to throw your life away over what?
Yeah, I know.
And these are folks in the federal government. These are folks in the intelligence community. These are folks, right, in special operations, in the military, law enforcement.
Yeah,
right,
brother. I just recently lost one of my Ranger buddies who decided to walk away from a pretty good job in banking to go fight in Ukraine.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
He was just ready to go back to the fight. He really believed in defending that. And it's just like, man, there's a whole, like you're saying, there's a whole platoon of those guys just sitting waiting for the right cause.
There's a division.
Yep.
There's probably 2 or 3 divisions
just waiting for the cause that feels just.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, like, I feel good knowing that there's a lot of us out there that are willing to lay down our lives for the right reason. But I also want to, push pause and calm, because, and this is really weird for me to even speak this, but violence doesn't, beget violence, right? I mean, that's horrible coming from me, right? Because I've trained my entire life to just, turn it on and turn it off. Right now is not the time for it. Yeah. It's, we need to take a combat pause, and we need to listen, and we need to see what's going on. And, we need to defend the American people. But I will say, what also gives me great hope is that every Walmart, every circle drive at an elementary school, there might be one of us sitting in the car waiting for that kid, waiting for our wife to come out of the store. And it does give me, great hope that there are folks out there that will respond to danger and threats on the American people. And I would hope that if my wife's at a store, somebody, whether it's a meat eater or somebody, is there to, say, hey, I got you, get your daughter, go.
Yep.
Let me cover you while you move out of here. I mean, that's my biggest fear, Rocco, is that I'm out protecting, one of our many clients, and my kids are like, where's my dad? And when, cause I still have a badge. Right. And where's my dad at? When's my dad going to get here? That's my worst fear, right? Is I'm not going to be there. So I condition my kids to be ready and know what to do, like you said, in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm currently filming that show. We just wrapped up the season 1 of Homestead, and it, raises a lot of questions for me of all the things that could happen in the event of, say, an EMP or whatnot. And I think of it.
It's a great show, by the way. Listen, it's an amazing show. We watched it. We watched the first part. I am so proud of you, brother. It's amazing. We love it. You guys knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited for the rest of it. And season 2 is coming around. We're going to start filming in January, February. So exciting stuff. But Steve, thank you so much for your time today, brother. Thank you for your insight. You're always very educational to speak to. You know so much about this, and I really enjoy it. Anything that you want to give to the audience before we wrap this up?
No, just stay vigilant, stay ready, and love one another. That's also weird for me to say, but that's what we need, man. Yeah. Need a little bit of love, right? Be polite, professional, and have a plan to go to work if you have to, right? But we need unity right now, man. That's what we need.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve. Steve is the CEO of the North Group, and this is Time to Head North podcast. Thank you so much for you guys' time. Until next time, we'll see you later.